All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the live stream. Supergirl here. This is going to be a little bit of a different conversation or live stream because we're actually going to do what I would call like a revisitation back. So today is Wednesday. I like to, back in the day when I was first starting to create. How should I put this? Hold on. Let me bring my mic down a little bit. There we go. When I was first when I was first creating content, let's say video content back in the day, I had coined Wednesday, Woden's Day, Odin's Day as Warrior Goddess Day, right? I was also born on a Wednesday, just a fun fact. And in that poem where it's like Wednesday's child is full of woe. No, well, it is midweek, but I looked at Wednesday. Wednesday's typically a rest day from the gym for me and hubby, but I wanted to use today as a little bit of a special day because Wednesdays, because it's rest day, I figured it's a good time to talk about fitness, right? Because I love fitness. The gym and personal training and all of that was a big part of my life, is still a big part of my life, but not so much my public persona. And so today is a little bit a way of like merging together my different personas in terms of like the fitness part of myself and coaching and all of that, which like was a big deal. It still is a big deal, but not in the sense of competing anymore, right? But yeah, we've gone to the Olympia, we've gone to Vegas. I competed at nationals. I placed top 10 in bikini, and like in fitness, I've won a few shows. So, hey, Sai. Hi. How are you? It's been a little bit. I don't know if you guys have daylight savings where you are, but it was daylight savings here where I was on Sunday, and I didn't realize for that hour that it so threw me off. Even right now, I'm still like thrown off as to like where we are in time space. And so typically I do an astrology reading for you guys where we map out all the charts of the planets and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take your astro, or let's say like the astro, yeah, your astro. Like think of it as you as an individual, right? And your approach to fitness and let's say bodybuilding, right? That so much in our world, like when it comes to words, it's been so misconstrued, right? Like when we say like hoverboard, it's not a hoverboard. It's like we have the marketing terms for things and what things are, or like the tags of things and what things intrinsically are. And we're in a crazy time right now cosmologically. I think you guys have heard me talk about that before. And if you're new to the live stream, welcome. I'm Supergirl. I'm Kara Zor-El. I have a very strong connection with that character of Supergirl. I'm going to be doing a really special reading a little later of Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which is one of Alan Moore's only comic books that he wrote about Superman. And if you guys aren't familiar about the character of Superman, Superman was actually created by Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, and Joe Shuster actually is from right here in Toronto, where I am right now. And that brings me back to like my story about fitness, because I moved out here to Toronto, I don't know, 2008, 2009, and I got a job as a personal trainer downtown. It's actually where I met my husband. We were both personal trainers, and I got into competing. I competed in IDFA, natural kind of federation, as well as like a few, like I did a lot of fitness stuff. So if you guys aren't familiar with the difference between fitness and bikini and bodybuilding in general, but I did the routine. There's like a 2-minute routine you have to do in addition to it. So I competed in all that. Competition in fitness was a big part of my life in my 20s and in my early 30s. So I'm 39. I'm 39 years old. I'm born in the 80s. And so from about like 23 to like 32 or so, I was competing a lot. So I competed in nationals, actually placed like top 10 bikini in like 2007. And if you go back, I did that was at nationals. That's like I went back to my hometown of Winnipeg to compete in that. But so the show, the stage, all that kind of stuff, the sparkly bikini, all that kind of thing, getting ready for the stage, getting ready for bodybuilding shows taught me a lot about the alchemy of your body, right? So when I was growing up in Winnipeg, I used to watch like TSN, and TSN used to at the time actually air yes. Wait, so what? I'm doing both. This is a this is a new day. So this is a very special stream. So it's Wednesday, you guys, right? So Wednesday lunchtime. I'm looking at this as like superhero fitness school because I've done a lot of like astro, doing all this stuff, and I haven't really done an. I almost like after competition, after I was like, I'm not competing anymore. Uh, I I stopped doing fitness content, and I do still have so much fitness content. You know, like how to do shoulder presses right, and like all the like workout programming, and like how to approach bodybuilding. And so um, I wanted this show to be an ode, or rather a call to all of you to relook at the gym in a new way, or fitness in a new way, because Alan Moore has this beautiful quote where he, not really a beautiful quote, I think it's a truth quote, where he's like, the comic books as a medium are sublime, but the comic book industry is effed, right? So you can say that about a lot of industries, right? Like the beauty and the beauty industry, or like fitness and the fitness industry. So it's funny because getting ready for the stage, and that body that I present on stage, super dehydrated and ripped and six pack and all that kind of stuff, is not a healthy body, right? You're like severely dehydrated, you're like carb loaded, you're everything is very it's very, you realize how perfect of a technology your body truly is, right? And this is kind of a call out to you guys to revisit what it means to weight lift. And yeah, exactly. It was super unhealthy. Like, and also like the body, and also like when I first started competing, I didn't do a very good job of like rebounding or like coming back to normal, right? So you're like super ripped, and like you're carb loading, and like all the carbs you're eating are like making you more veiny and more vascular. And then you you just like stop for a bit because you're growing so intense. Like I had to do like 2 hours of cardio a day, in addition to weightlifting, in addition to going to work and my own clients. So I don't know how I was really hard on my own adrenal system. And so a lot of women as well, when it comes to your metabolism, you know, after you compete and you diet really hard, you try to come back to normal, and then your hormones are just like so out of whack and can't come back into play. So I wanted to get you guys true meditation in the training manual. 100, oh, Legion of Tomorrow. Great name, but it's so fun. That's going in the book. Yes, so meditation, and that's, I think, with all the words, us like expanding what it means, right? So we think of bodybuilding. Let's break down the words, right? Body, which all of us have, and building a body, right? So growing up, um, this is this is like an old mother wound of mine, but my mom used to always call me fat or big or heavy or these kinds of things, right? And so when you're trying to learn like your own body's stuff, there is a level of meditation when it comes to weightlifting. Personally, the breath, when you have I guess the cadence of breathing in and breathing out, all of that stuff is kind of wrapped up in weightlifting. So bodybuilding, weightlifting, the thing is, when you go to the gym, there's no like manual for you in terms of how to put together a workout program. So oftentimes, like when you go to the gym, or when I've gone to the gym, and you don't have a plan, you're just kind of like going around and like playing with the weights, which, like, okay, cool. But there's really when I first started to get into weightlifting, and this is where I credit my best friend Laura for this, is that she had this encyclopedia of bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. And ironically enough, my hubby Kevin had the same manual, right? And it's just interesting because when you think about approaching, you know, building a body, it's not like, yes, genetics is part of it, but I was very like skinny in the shoulders. So it was like one of those things where like learning how to like visualize in your head where you want to go with your body, because your body will respond, right? So this concept of your body hears everything that your mind says is very true. And when you're approaching the gym, you're going to work out, all of that self-talk, which is why like having a great playlist when you're going to the gym is very useful. But going back to, I'm going to give some shout outs to weightlifting right now because I used to work at the hospital in diabetes. And essentially, we found that if you weight train, meaning if you do resistance training, and that we'll get into that and the definition of what that means in just a second. If you do resistance training or weightlifting or something where you're like lifting heavy shit ish up and then putting it back down again, that is if you do that twice a week, you'll actually lower your chances of type 2 diabetes by a substantial percent. And there's tons of research around this, right? Because your body itself, muscle is very expensive, right? You know that analogy of, oh, if you drop a pound of feathers and a pound of bricks, the bricks, of course, are going to take up less space, but they're going to fall at the same rate because it's a pound and a pound, right? A pound is a pound, but a pound of muscle takes up less space than a pound of fat. So if you replace your body's composition with fat and muscle, you may weigh the same, but just be a tighter, more compact version of yourself. And on top of that, muscle is sculptable, right? So this concept of going in and be like bodybuilding. So this ties back into Supergirl and the superheroes that I looked up to, because when I was reading comic books, I was just like, wow, look at these bodies, look at these girls, right? Like the tight little waist and muscular and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense that you would have, like, even the superheroes that have powers, you still train, right? So Supergirl actually is trained by Wonder Woman. And so that's an interesting concept, right? Because I trained my little sister in bodybuilding and she competed and did very well, right? I used to have this saying that I trained the hottest women in the six, or the hottest women in Toronto. I don't call it the six anymore. That's a whole separate thing. But this idea of you coming into understanding of your own body through working out. And so when you think about your hormones, like especially your happiness hormones, right? We're talking about serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. Oxytocin specifically, which is known as the love and bonding hormone, it's the hormone that's released when mummies have babies, that kind of situation. I think that there's telepathy involved in what oxytocin is, but oxytocin has been known to be released when you move in synchronicity with other human beings. So for example, if I like do a dance move or like one of these, and then you copy me, we are moving in synchronicity as we move it at the same time, and that in each of us releases oxytocin, and that is like this invisible thread that then bonds us. And so typically in personal training, there's certain things with weightlifting that online programming can only go so far. And this is why like I feel like I hadn't been talking about fitness so much in an online situation. Yes, synchronicity. It literally, that's a way of understanding the way your body's technology works, right? We think about how your body's able to communicate in like less than a thought, from across the way better than Wi-Fi, right? Hey, Jonathan. Hello, Superman. Hey, Louie. So today's show, just to get you guys up to speed, it's Wednesday, right? And typically back in the day, I would do this was before like my content was so all over the place, right? I wasn't like organized. I was like, I just need to like talk and get it out there. But Wednesdays I'm reserving as like superhero fitness school because, as I said, I spend a big chunk of my life, and I still do, in the gym. The gym saved my life, really. When I was going through really dark places in my life, right? And you feel like everything's out of control. When I would go to the gym and like focus on like the one more rep and like pushing your body and being in communion with your body, with your breath, and listening to a really good playlist while you're doing all that, that saved me so much, like back when I was going through the hardest times. And so the gym has always been my place to go to, my temple, my sacred space, right? And it was where I found the super girl within me, right? Because little Rachel, reading these comic books, wanted to be a superhero when I grew up, right? And what did it take to hold the mantle of that energy signature? Training, right? And thanks for the gift, Superman. That's fitting, right? And So I wanted to share some of the information that I've picked up in my own fitness journey and present it back to you guys in the form of this show. So if you guys want to ask any questions about fitness, weightlifting, diet, nutrition, supplements, like I call them like superhero supplements, because think about it, our body has all these hormones, right? All these neurotransmitters, and it's not fully understood how it works, right? So, for example, your body wants to be in homeostasis, which is why it's not so simple when you're dieting, right? To just stop eating food. Like your body will then go into like a starvation mode, and then you're going to hold on to all the fat. So that's why like we do things like carb cycling, but you can't always do carb cycling or ketosis when you are a vegetarian, let's say. It's harder, rather, because how can you be in ketosis if all of your protein sources also have a certain amount of um, protein in it, right? So let's go back to that. And when it comes to your food, right? So food and how you nourish yourself with food, all that kind of stuff is related to what your body most is able to incorporate, right? So think about it like a lock and key. You are to be unlocked and activated by certain food, activity, and then timing of those foods and activities at the same way, right? So when I first get a client, for example, I have like an initial matrix that I give them in terms of like food and supplementation. That's like a base. And then based on like the weeks and how you respond, hey Pikachu, we'll tweak it, right? Because that's the thing, right? You literally can't say that no two people are the same. Literally no. Like I have girls that like it's just not the same. And also you have people who have different goals, like body goals, right? So for example, for a long time in my training regime so let's say you like a weekly split. If you guys aren't familiar with like splitting your body parts, it's like this. When you first start out working out and weightlifting in the gym, we'll do a full body, right? So your full body is a lot of muscles. You got like your back muscles, your chest muscles, your legs, your shoulders, your arms. There's a lot. So, but typically we'll do a full body just because your body has never done these movements before, right? So the first time you've done a squat, or the first time you do a lunge, the first time you do a push-up or use a certain machine or use dumbbells or any of those kinds of things, you're literally rebuilding, or rather building neurologic pathways from your CNS to wherever your muscles are. So through your breath and through your tempo and all of that, you're building these connections. So typically with clients in the beginning, those first few workouts, they'll call me the next day and be like, I cannot move, I cannot go to the bathroom, I cannot go down the stairs, my body is sore. So the reason for that is that like, hey Jonathan, hey, we're doing Superhero Fitness School, you guys, and we're talking about weightlifting. My ode to weightlifting. So my current regime my current regimen, that's what I actually wanted to say. My current regimen right now is that I lift weights with my husband 4 times a week, and we do a body split where you do back and then chest, then take a break, which is today, but we missed yesterday, so we're going to make up for it today. Typically this is a rest day, and then we do legs, and then arms and shoulders. When I was competing actively, I would do shoulders first and then legs because of priority principle. And that's just the way when you're looking at things. So like I was very like, even though my mom always was calling me heavy, I didn't have any muscle in my upper body, right? And so the best way to get that nice hourglass frame is all like optical illusion, right? So if you build up your shoulders, guess what? Your waist is going to look smaller by comparison, right? So you're going to end up with that nice V taper, which Superman and Supergirl are best known for, right? And then you can have other days that deal with legs and all those kinds of things. Now, remember, in every body part, there's a whole gamut of exercises that you can do for it. So for example, back day, you may do lat pull down or pull-ups or rows or deadlifts, right? So all of these exercises can go into whatever that workout is. Now, how many sets you do, how many reps you do, your weights, all that kind of stuff, that's all the very mental part of it, right? And that's all like the tracking, all that kind of stuff, which is what your trainer would typically be there for if I would hire a coach. That's to take the thinking out of it, right? So I have hired coaches in the past, right? Every coach, every trainer needs a trainer, right? So especially when you're like getting dieted and you're like have no carbs and you're like having a foggy brain and you can't think because you've been doing like just cardio all the time. But you have someone there to kind of help you like organize what that is, what your protocols are and all that kind of stuff. But typically for most people, I like to think of food as like gas in your car, right? So if you're like a vehicle, you're like this like super powered sports car, you're not going to like gas up your car. You want to, and any gas you don't use by end of day is added on as like a globule of like fat that doesn't do it as like storage, right? So think of it like, okay, like you wouldn't want to eat, like carbs are not the devil. That's the thing I wanted to tell you guys too. You actually need carbohydrates. You need all of these different macronutrients. And your macronutrients, just so you guys, so we're speaking the same language here. Estosa, I always get gas on Taco Tuesday, so I agree. Gas does not count as a macronutrient, unfortunately. I've never been a weights. Oh, nice. So you do calisthenics then, Jonathan? Like you do body weight? Yeah, yeah. That still counts as resistance training, right? I think what matters more is the concept of resistance or building strength, right? Because here in Toronto, I've seen such a change in the culture of fitness, right? So when I first moved here, I got a job as like at Extreme Fitness as a personal trainer, and I was like blown away. I was like, what? This is a job? I get to be at the gym all the time and just work out all day? And like, but that's a whole story for another time, how the gym industry worked and how awful it was actually they took advantage of the fact that that's something that we love doing. But that aside, the gym itself has a whole culture around it which can be intimidating, right? So like entering the gym and like there's no one there to show you how to use any of the machines if it's like if you're doing it properly. And remember, doing it properly is different based on your body type, right? And your own mechanics and like old injuries and old other things that are going on. So it's not good necessarily to look at someone else doing something because what you're supposed to be doing is probably unique to you. But regardless, weightlifting, right? The concept of let's say lifting a weight, going as hard as you can, as for as many reps as you can till you hit failure. I love weightlifting and training because it's the one place where failure is something that you strive for. You're trying to push to failure, right? So your body goes to that failing point, can no longer do another rep. Then you rest, and then you do it again, and then you keep on pushing your body's musculature to rip, so that the next time you go back to that exercise, you have built in, literally created new muscle fibers so that you are then able to handle that weight, so that your workout weight very quickly becomes your warm-up weight and you're able to then push your strength. My deadlift is pretty strong, you guys. When me and my sister go to the gym, it's kind of like this thing, like we love lifting really heavy. I think it was 200 and something is my deadlift, 205, 210 for 8, something like that. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've done deadlifting. And remember, deadlifts themselves, to teach that exercise, I have spent months with clients sometimes to teach a proper deadlift. And that's cool. That's the process, right? So going back to like the culture of fitness in Toronto, and I feel like this is overall as well, right? That there's this idea of burnout, and I was guilty of this too as well, right? I was a cardio bunny. I love classes too, like boot camp classes and like all those kinds of things, your heart rate's up. But those boot camp spin classes, aerobics kinds of classes, I love them, but they're not weightlifting. They should not be conflated. And in a world where everyone doesn't have time for anything, they tend to like, people tend to like put together that stuff with the weightlifting stuff, where like ultimately you kind of want to think of it as your weights is like your is what kind of holds, and I look at like everything else as like extra cardio and extra ways of you burning up things, right? If weight loss is something of a goal of yours, right? So for a lot of people, weight loss isn't the goal, right? You do want to build muscle and or just be healthier, all those kinds of things as well. So, okay, so where was I going with this? Oh yes, weightlifting and the this idea of everything else kind of working together and you figuring out your own process and ode to yourself, let's say, right? So in Toronto, I said that it changed because there was a lot of just like classes and this concept of like, well, I'm just going to go to F45 or these boutique classes and go 3 times a week, and that's whichever, and that's fine, that's good. But I would recommend that you add into any of like your workouts just a time where you learn weightlifting with yourself, right? So having a split or working out or just like understanding like, oh, these muscles are like part of my chest and that's how I'm strengthening that, or these muscles are part of my shoulders and all that kind of thing. Because when it comes to muscle, right, when we think of like the cardio or any of kind of these sessions where you're like burning all of that off, you're really only burning off the calories in that session. So explain what I mean. When you lift weights, you actually are, when you build muscle, a pound of muscle actually burns, I think like 3 or 4 calories at rest per hour. So what does that mean for you? If you then replace your fat with muscle, then you're going to end up with a body that is like a furnace, like a super pumped, well-equipped quantum machine that's able to just burn fat by just sitting there, right? So no longer this and also when you're doing dance or any other activities that you're doing, having the muscle there is also going to help empower and strengthen all of that as well. So that's kind of cool. Okay, let me just go to here. I'm going to go into now the chart reading of the everlasting now in terms of the stars, and then I'm just going to wrap up the astro for that. With the astro for that, because what I've been called to for right now is just this concept of hormone health. Scorpio season is about all of like the juiciness in between, right? So your endocrine system, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, all of like your blood cells even, right? Because your blood isn't just like this fluid thing, you have like cells in there, right? So all of that stuff is ruled by Scorpio. Hey slime. Hello. So and I don't think that we give enough credence to the power that your mind has to control your hormone levels, right? Oh, thank you. I have a tattoo. My tattoos all mean something as well. We'll get into the power of the magical power of tattoos as well, because bodybuilding, fitness, all of that. If you strip everything away, is a communion with yourself. So whether or not you lift weights by doing push-ups and doing more push-ups every other day, right? Or whether or not you go to a traditional gym and you start a weightlifting program, or whether or not it's something else where you are cultivating strength in yourself. Because, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of situation. So it's just a matter of just being aware of the great gift that your body actually is and takes you from point A to point B all the time, and also to be aware of like how important your self-talk is, your self-thoughts are to how your body even works, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're approaching a weight and you're trying to go for like, or for me example, I was trying to like, you know, Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, where she's in like the prison and she's like doing those pull-ups in the prison. She's like, screw the machines, that kind of thing. I was so inspired by that. And so whenever I do those exercises, I'm like, Sarah Connor arms. So that, like cultivating strength, and even with nutrition, I try to get people, get away from like all the foods you can't eat, that you're not supposed to eat, and more about how you're nourishing yourself. Like when I actually first started dieting for fitness competitions, I was surprised at how much food I actually had to eat, because if you think about your metabolic furnace, you don't actually want to starve yourself to develop like a lean body, right? Because if you're starving yourself, your body's like, what the heck is happening here? And it's going to hold on to everything, right? More important is for you to have like the right vitamins and nutrition and all that stuff in your day, and more ideally to come from food sources, because that's the more like your body does more with it. Like when you take things that are synthesized, sugar as an example, it's why my nickname's Sugar Rachel, because I cultivated my own inner sweetness. Like sugar is not the devil, right? There's sugar in everything. You think like glucose or fructose or the sweetness in everything. It's not bad, right? But it's just one of those things where it's a balance, and too much is too much, right? And when I was working in diabetes, that's basically too much sugar is like shards of glass to the interior of your arteries, and it's just basically ripping apart your insides. And your pancreas, which is like the area of the organ that secretes insulin, which deals with sugar, can't deal with it. It just like breaks down. It's like, ah. But as I told you guys, lifting weights, all that stuff, you're basically rebuilding your body back. And bringing this back to like even Greek myth, Prometheus had his liver, eaten by that eagle, and then it grows back each time. Well, it's torture, but he gets freed. It's okay. Hercules comes and gets him. But that concept of the fact that the liver can regenerate, that our liver can regenerate, right? It's why we are able to donate parts of our liver and have it grow back. So that's a human being thing, right? So if we think of that and we think about our body's ability to heal, our body's capacity to come back, right? If we only like mentally, and this sounds a little woo-woo, but if you mentally believe in it, right? If you think about like consciously talking to your heart or your lungs, or like when I would do like cardio and I'm like hitting that point, or you're almost about to hit the wall where you're tired, but you like call upon all your various cells and you're like, okay, here I am. I can do this, right? And your body responds to you, and somehow in your like this concept of adrenaline, right? Where like moms are able to like lift up a whole car because their babies are in danger. We're able to work our endocrine and hormonal systems. They're much more sensitive to our thoughts than we realize. And also when we think about the ability for music to, we talk about BPM. When I used to teach fitness classes, this was way back in the day, and when Good Life had Les Mills, which was like this New Zealand company that anyways, they were all really fit. We had these fitness classes that were all programmed or designed to go along with the BPM to different songs, right? And that there's a truth in that, right? BPM, beats per minute. Your heart beats per minute. And so this idea that when you hear a certain BPM, you're going to naturally want to move in sync with it, right? And so whether that is in dance or whether that is by tempo or your own breathing, it's a way of helping to keep time, right? And the difference between being like, trapped in time and like riding time and leveraging the boundary for what it can build for us is something in our consciousness, that when we are in communion with our body, where we're not necessarily like in this like headspace of like, like textbook, right? I'm going to show you a textbook of how to do a squat or a deadlift. And then there's teaching it, like doing it, or like I'm going to demo it for you, and then I'm going to get you to copy, and then as you do it, I'm going to put my hands on you and I'm going to correct you, because sometimes we like, especially in dance, right? If you like rehearse a move and let's say you're doing it, right? And you're focusing on one part of the move and this hand is like doing some ugly thing. You know what I mean? So straight on here, you're like, yeah, but then you like look back at the video, like, what is that hand doing? Because you're consciously not aware of what that hand is doing. So then you can kind of correct that. So the same thing kind of goes with teaching anything. Like for example, bench press, for whatever reason, was one of the hardest exercises for me to learn, just because like I would be pushing from my arms and not from my chest, right? And that all starts from mind to muscle connection, right? It's like closing your eyes, going inward, being like, okay, deep breath in, and then so in through the nose, out through the mouth, And then as you push, it's kind of like a train, right? You're like, whoo, and you like push out all the air, and you also then push. So even with punching, you're always exhaling with effort. So, and right? So inhaling and then exhaling. I had a lot of girls who would hold their breath when they would train because they're so focused, like, but then you're gonna implode, right? So yes, posture adjustment or just your breathing, like remember to breathe, focus, and then also just like, the pep talk of like, you got this. This is lightweight, baby. You can do this all day, right? So I say that to myself as well, right? Amp yourself up, hype yourself up. Your body responds to that, right? Nothing better than, when you go on stage and people are cheering for you. You get this extra energy from it, so you can ride it. So think of the universe cheering for you as you're lifting weights, because all of your cells are responding to you activating them by your breath, right? And the weightlifting is almost like this container by which your breath can fill and fully expand into, right? Because oftentimes with our breath, we're so in our short, like we're not pulling the air all the way into our diaphragm, right? We tend to be like, and supposed to all the way in, and then fully exhaling, letting all the air, all of the toxins, all of the carbon dioxide out, right? And realizing that our muscles and nothing in our bodies can operate without the power of your breath. So I was also realizing this when I'm going to finish this off with some astro. I'm a Taurus, right? So Taurus is an earth sign and is very much attuned to like body. And if we think about the earth symbolically, we are a mirror of the earth, right? So no different than the earth has ley lines and energetic centers. Us and our body parts have ley lines and energetic centers. That's related to tattoos as well. Like you can choose to have tattoos or totems on certain parts of your body, which will then empower you in very different ways based on your own keys and genetic code, right? So think of us as all like little planets, which has like an earth as a basis. But we all have different, slightly different alignments, slightly different energies and ways in which we're interfacing with reality. And that's the whole beauty and joy of life, I think. Okay, so 1 second. I'm just gonna grab my chart, and I'm gonna. Oh my goodness, one of my planets fell down. I will also let you guys in on the read I'm going to do a little bit later this evening. So yesterday was the 5th of November. If you guys remember V for Vendetta, right? Remember the 5th of November, right? That is from Alan Moore's Watchmen, but also comes from a poem, right? About Guy Fawkes Day and about like, rebellion, right? All that kind of fun stuff. But I think in each of us, there's a level of that as well, like that little rebel heart within us that is going to follow your own rules going forward. Also, Alan Moore is the author of 2 of the comics that we're going to be visiting tonight, which is, what I told you guys, the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, as well as Promethea, book 5. And this has some fun stuff in it. This has oh my gosh, so much encoded in this, Alan Moore, holy moly. I wanted to read a little snippet, because from the more like fantastical panels. So you see here how gorgeous that is. Look how gorgeous it is. And let's see here. Einstein's space-time is a timeless, 4-dimensional solid containing every instant simultaneously forever, including our lives. Death, therefore, is a perspective illusion of the 3rd dimension. Don't worry. A funeral celebration, or a wake, dominates James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, in which all human experience is distilled into one timeless day. Cheers. I love that. But this concept of time is shifting, right? 29, tarot path, the moon, zodiac sign, Pisces, color, buff flecked with silver jewel. Oh, interesting. I love how this has the moon and 29 as being Pisces. And so that connection there of Pisces and the moon. And Pisces, 12th house, all that kind of stuff. No pressure, voice of one, but there's a lot of savior, savior archetype imprints in any Pisces placements as well. After all, Superman is a Pisces and Supergirl is a Virgo. And that's that concept of the opposition, right? And I was looking at the chart and in terms of oppositions lately, because I have quite a few oppositions in in my own chart, and you may as well, but there's other aspects as well. And I like to say, like, the aspects, just to be clear about what we're talking about, when you have aspects, it's basically when you have the sun in one place and like another planet in another, and they create an angle between the two of them. And based on that angle, that is imprinted with a particular meaning behind it, specific to you. And no one's going to have the same stack or particular aspects that you have. However, you're going to have commonalities with others who have similar aspects to you, but those energies are also colored by things like the types of signs and planets where they're being positioned, right? So all of that stuff is like related to personal training, right? Because when I think of creating a workout program or a nutritional plan, no two are the same. You can start with like an initial like blueprint, but ultimately what ends up being your key, what unlocks you, that aha moment, I'll put it this way, right? Think of it when you, I don't know if you guys ever had this, where you're trying to learn something or you're trying to solve a problem, or like this, like in video games, where you have like a puzzle you're trying to get past. There's a trick to how you get past the level, right? Or in my case, you're like trying to learn a dance, so you're like you know the steps, and you try to do the steps, right? Because it's one thing conceptualizing it in your mind and then like actually doing it, right? So let's say you try doing it, right? And it's like failing. I've had this multiple times. A certain, like, I don't know, sometimes some dances, choreography, even my own choreography, I can learn really easily. And then others, it's like such a struggle. It comes eventually, it just takes more practice. But eventually, when you get it, you know, like that moment where like you get it, it just like clicks. That aha, oh my gosh, I did it. That. There's no certificate for that. You know, like you can write a test and you can just pass the test. Thanks, Bomb Chico. Wow. But I think it's just like in all of us, that aha moment is something that is so truly personal. And you could have those that you have in your life, you know, mentors, teachers, guides, loved ones who can assist you in your learning, in your aha moments. But that moment is yours, right? When you finally get it, and there's that moment like, I did it. And it's fun when you have witnesses, but it's totally cool even if you don't, right? Because the truth of that echoes in eternity, right? When you get it. So I welcome all of you in terms of your own charts to get it, because once you get it and like realize, wait a minute, that's why I came here. That's the soul mission. And there can be multiple, right? And I think all of that to uncover, like, what is it that you're truly meant to do here, right? And what are the avenues and pathways by which I want to take in order to make that a reality in this 3D realm? And so for me, personal training, fitness, the gym, weightlifting has been a way of taking dreams, what I wanted to look like at 10, and I wanted to look like Supergirl or Batgirl, who I watched in the 60s, right? Like from the 60s show. I wanted to be like, look like those girls. And I never looked up to celebrities, right? I never looked up to like Beyonce or J-Lo or that kind of thing. I instead looked up to like Supergirl or Elektra or She-Ra or Supergirl, or these fantastical figures by which I've thought like, oh, if I worked hard enough, then I'll be worthy of holding that energy signature. And that's what I encourage for all of you to take a look at in yourself, in terms of knowing what you were truly meant to play here in the game of life. And do not shrink down, step up to it. And even if you're not ready yet, there's still a journey, right? There's still, like, that's the whole fun. Like, that's part of like why, like, I get sad sometimes when you beat a video game and you're at the end and you're like, yay, I did it, but like, now the game is over. But good news, you can replay the game, right? So that's the thing. Like, this is like a game, and it should be a lot more fun. And as you embark on a journey of self-discovery, you are the universe discovering itself, right? So that is the joy of all of this, and the joy of all the different pathways by which we come to activation, right? And I know in my heart of hearts that lifting weights and resistance training and more that communion with your body, right? Just carving out 2 times of like in a week to you and yourself. It doesn't have to be like no selfies. You don't need to take selfies or like have video footage. Like, you keep score. The cosmos knows when you've done it, right? So I encourage you to look into personal body practice, whatever that looks like. If it's like doing 10 push-ups a day, or like something where you and your body are in communion with each other and you get used to like how you breathe, how you push with effort. I would recommend doing things like boxing, or like you can go on YouTube and find things like I'm learning how to do like Tahitian, like there's belly dancing, but there's also like Tahiti belly dance. It's just not like Middle Eastern belly dance. There's a nuance to it, so I'm learning that. So, but that's convo. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Casey. Oh, I'm so happy that you like I don't know how to tell you guys that like I think we're all psychic, first of all. But my own personal psychic abilities have been blunted for a very long time due to my lack of love for my body, right? Because even when I did fitness and competing, I was so like was so harsh on myself. Like in the mirror, like always like every little bit of fat I would just like criticize and look at and just. And if you've ever competed in any fitness competition, it's such a mind F, because one week you're like, I look great. And then the next week I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so fat. Like, how, what? So, no worries. I'm glad. Yes. And hey, Austin. Hey. So I'm just about to wrap up today's conversation. So every Wednesday, going forward, you guys, at this time, I'm going to have this being like a superhero fitness school. So I think next week I'm going to do an actual workout with you guys. We'll do like a body weight, full body weight made perfect 10 protocol, right? And you guys can follow along if you want, or you can just like save it for later. But just exercises and movements that don't belong to anyone, right? Like Bikram yoga, for example, right? Like the hot yoga thing where you're like, oh, I'm gonna patent these moves. I'm like, those moves belong to humanity. No one can patent the squat or like the push-up. I own the push-up. Like, what the heck? And you need to pay me to things to. Well, I'm just gonna call the push-up something else. I'm gonna call it pushing the ground down. So all of these things are just their movements and ways of your body doing them as well. And even the push-up, that's the video I'm going to be releasing today. I love push-ups, by the way, because push-ups are a wonderful barometer of fitness, because you're literally pushing the ground away and pushing your body up. But there's other things going on, right? Your abs need to stay tight. Your belly button needs to push right up into your spinal cord so that you don't end up with that slump, right? And that's why sometimes clients, my back hurts from doing because you're not putting any activity and like strength into the other parts of your body. And when you do body splits, you realize as well like how connected everything is, right? So I don't know if you guys know this, but when you do squats, you're literally activating your abs as much as when you do crunches, right? Because you have to, but it's just like different parts of your abs, and just like those inner abs that are there to literally structurally hold the top part of your body to the bottom. And so if we start thinking about our bodies as these beautiful like these high-tech mech suits of like the highest caliber, everyone in the universe wants one and you got one, right? State of the art. And it's just about knowing how to activate it in yourself. And for some girls, squats are just not an option. For actually some people, squats are not an option because whether it's your knees or your hips or those other things. But guess what? There's other exercises you can do to still activate those muscle groups. And so in that journey of self and, figuring yourself out, you'll be able to figure out what exercises you want to work with and ones you don't want to work with because they don't vibe with you, right? Like, for example, what exercise do I never like doing? Okay, so hip thrusts. I swear to God, if I see another girl doing, there's nothing wrong with hip thrusts, okay? First of all, but that thrust is a very specific way in which your body is moving, and so those muscles are going to move in a very specific way, and you're going to build certain muscle groups in a very specific way. And I find that in places where you're building a lot of strength, you need to do equal work in flexibility to those body parts, right? Because um, stretching is so key, and you should stretch in your workout as well, but carving out more consistent time with yourself just to stretch is important. I don't mean yoga. Like, you can do yoga, but I don't even consider yoga as proper stretching, because not all the yoga postures uh, fit all of the body parts that need to be, let's say, released or worked on, right? And so maybe we'll do a little stretching thing as well. And it's also too, like, a lot of my clients never liked yoga because they're like, it's so hokey and that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, so like maybe we'll do more like cool stretching, like making stretching cool, and stretching can like be work too, right? It's all of those parts of your body where you like push a little further and then come back. So like having fitness goals are a little bit more well-rounded, so more than like losing weight or having a six-pack and being like, I would really like to know how to do a handstand, or I would really like to know how to learn how to do splits, or and these things are all you've watched Cirque du Soleil. Like, I watched Cirque du Soleil live actually in South Africa way back in the day, and it's so, I love stage shows for that, right? To see that live and like, wow, humans can do such cool ish, right? And just realizing, oh, like, just in ourselves, like, look at Batman. Batman doesn't have superpowers. He's trained. And of course, you have the gadgets and all that kind of stuff too, but all of those work as well as the being, the energy that is holding it and empowering it. I'm going to find that video of where Cortana talks about the birth of Master Chief from Halo, because, you know, she talks about the suit, right? Mjolnir, like and you guys know, I love mech suits. Like Power Rangers, I love mech suits. Batman yoga. You know what? We can maybe do something like that, like a superhero stretch kind of thing, right? Let them breathe. Yeah. Where am I going with this? Okay. I wanted to wrap up, but just to let you guys know that every week on Wednesday at this time, we'll do a bit of astro, because it's part of like the lens of where we are in time space, because especially with daylight savings, like, what is time? It's so arbitrary, right? And like different time zones and that kind of stuff. Did you guys know on Mars they only have like one time zone, right? Just one universal Mars time. But yeah, if you think about your own personal body practice, I do feel like in the cosmos right now, Uranus is in Taurus. And so that is the planet of revolution. And speaking of like, you know, remember the 5th of November, right? This idea of revolution. And, you know, in a world where following the crowd and being a sheep is the norm, being yourself is a revolutionary act, right? So if you are able to, in yourself, be healthy, be empowered, know what foods are good for you, know what foods are not great for you, know what you should be doing in terms of exercises, know when to stretch, how far to push yourself. These are all intel to you in wielding the power of you. And once you get all those aha moments all stacked up, all of a sudden, that's what I feel the transformation sequences in a lot of movies and stories, right? You know, when Sailor Moon, crystal power, right? And so you invoke yourself, right? I'm calling upon the me's of all timelines and all realities and all of that energy to assist me in being exactly who I need to be. And that takes practice, and that takes work sometimes, just like, you know, a sword going into the flames and getting beaten a little bit to be honed and perfected. That's like training, right? You are the sword and into the flames and working on it. But there is so much to be had from just going through it and being aware that, like, you know, you aren't alone when it comes to that. There are, yes, I have the power. And just when you work out, try that in your head. When you work out and like playing that music where it's just like it just is so high vibe, it truly, your cells on that level are going to remember and just like wake up. And then once they all wake up, done, we're there, and then we win. It's not that simple, but on one level, it kind of is on a quantum level if you think about it, right? Because once you figure it out, everyone else figures it out too. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this fun, like the first Warrior Goddess Wednesday live stream where we talked about your body and fitness, working out, carbs, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep this live stream as being those types of content and topics. It's still going to relate to astro because think about it. Whether or not you feel motivated to go to the gym that day is impacted by the stars too, right? Or like, as I told you, like daylight savings time hit, and like all this other stuff is happening with Pluto energetically. So we'll go into that a little bit later on tonight when we do the comic book read, because I'm reading a double feature Alan Moore. And we're going to talk a little bit about authors and being a writer as well, and what it means to be a conduit for certain energies, and like when your thoughts are yours and when they're from like a bigger context, and just deciphering all of that as well, right? Because I told you, your body hears everything that your mind says. So just be aware of what frequencies you let in and what frequencies you are also resonating and emitting out as well, because you are far more powerful than we've been led to believe. So, okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me. You have the power, yes. And ultimately, I hope that you continue on in your journey of being you. And I do think your body practice, whether it's lifting weights, which I do think everyone should lift weights, whatever that looks like, I think we can expand that definition a little bit more. It doesn't have to be the gym, right? So I encourage you to cultivate strength, right? So that you have the 3D body that is able to carry out all of the dreams that you have to offer the world. So thank you guys for joining me for this. I'll catch you all next time. And Supergirl signing out. Remember, the universe is counting on you, but no worries. I got your back. Bye, friends.